I must say, Francesca, welcome to my channel. And I'm so glad to have you here. And you are a name in posthuman studies that needs no introduction. All the posthuman philosophers, professors, teachers, they know Francesca Ferrando. And yes, we all are your huge fan, and especially in India. Scholars like me, researchers like me, we read you, and yes, we look forward to all the things and all the updated information towards you, right? So thank you so much for being there and uh, doing wonders, performing wonders. Welcome again.
Oh, Diksha, thank you so much, and thank you so much for your presence, for your vision, for your work. I love all the amazing projects that you've been just sharing with us, and yeah, so that's going to be fascinating. The idea of that itinerant conference is that because India is so big, I think we're going to do in three different years. The first year is going to be center-south. The second year is going to be more center, and the last year is going to be more north. But that is a specific vision. But we can also, like you said, India is so active on this topic. It's incredible. So many, the critical posthumanist network is also there from the Indian posthumanist network. Bankura University now, Alliance University is in the work of like developing things. So much happening, so many scholars, and it's incredible. And like you said, it's. I think it's flourishing so well because there are so many roots that are already very posthumanist in India. So that's why it's almost like, the roots just keep going. There is so much already in the tradition. So it is always a great joy to be there with the Indian family. And yeah, let me know about all these incredible, project that you are envisioning. Connect, we can connect with everyone else and doing some, of this itinerant conference connecting your center and Bankura and I know the Calcutta also had a beautiful conference on posthumanism. It's so much. There is so much going on. It's incredible. Thank you so much for your work. Thank you so much, all the incredible community of posthumanist scholars in India. And I was in India recently. I was actually exactly 1 month ago. I was in India. And it was amazing with a beautiful conference, and it's always a joy to be there. And we're actually thinking of a very cool project. I'm going to tell everyone. We're considering an itinerant conference in India in December 2025, January 2026. And it will be a conference that moves around to different universities where local people can come discuss, and if they want, they can go on with this posthuman caravan, like Adi Shankara style. So wow. That's something that is going to happen. Yeah. And of course, you're going to be part of it, and all the incredible universities out there. And again, it's always great to be there. So thank you so much, Diksha. And all
I am already in. I am in. And so wherever it will be happening, I'll be joining you. So you have my words before even you start with the project, right? So before we start with the session, I would really like to introduce you, right? So here we have with us Dr. Francesca Ferrando. Though her name needs no introduction for the students and philosophers of posthumanism, still I would like to take this opportunity to introduce her fame that knows no boundaries. She is a professor at New York University. She is an award-winning philosopher and lecturer. She is globally involved in the posthuman as an author. She is an educator, an organizer, and a leading voice in the field of posthuman studies. Welcome, ma'am. And here I have a Can you hear me, ma'am? Am I audible?
Oh, yes. And of course, I just paused my camera and audio to make sure that you were taking full space from the internet connection, just to make sure that I was
okay. So yes, for this session, I have my first question, right? So my question is that I would really seek and I would implore your insights on the posthuman aesthetics and CGIs, computer-generated imageries, and please give me an idea that do you really think fashion can transcend humans' physical boundaries?
Thank you so much, Diksha, for this beautiful question. Yeah, it's, as a philosopher, I always like to go to the meaning of words. And so the notion of fashion can be also seen more in refined academic terms as aesthetics. And so if you think of aesthetics as something, the detail of the manifestation, let's say that, you know, you look at someone the way their own personal fashion is, or you look at a flower and you look at all the intricacies of the lines of a flower, or you look at the way a bee is flying around, or you look at the shape of clouds. I believe that you can call it fashion or you can call it aesthetics. It's really part of the aspect of manifesting in this existence. So I believe that there is beauty everywhere. And often when we stop thinking and we are just in the moment, we start to see that. Let's say that it's raining and a little drop of water falls on a lake and there are all these amazing circles going around and around until they disperse. So it's literally, we are surrounded by call it fashion, call it aesthetic, call it refinement of the manifestation of the vision. So in that sense, I think that fashion deeply transcends a human perspective. And even within human cultures has been something very personal, something connected more to an artistic vision. In fact, the best fashion people are also real artists of their own garments or of styles. So in that sense, I believe that fashion is really something that goes well beyond the human. And in that sense, of course, I believe that AI can create fashion is part of a poetic, which is creative manifestation, which is also aesthetic. And in that sense, what is being created, for instance, through generative AI, you can talk from fashion to images to text. Some of it, it's extremely beautiful. I mean, it is a real work of art. And in that sense, of course, I'm not thinking of art from a humanistic understanding, but I think of art as something that allows you to transcend the specific image. It's something that opens doors of possibilities. And so I had the exciting experience to actually being sometimes working with generative AI. And it is a path. Like when you are creating something, it's not that you get your work of art immediately. It takes time. Think, for instance, for a book, it takes years to have the book. And so it goes with AI. It's not that every image that comes out of AI is incredible or is out of, you know, this dimension or anything like that. But there are images, there are scenarios created through generative AI. There is fashion that is like that. And that is because I think there is no way we can have a type of existential manifestation, which can be anything, from the manifestation of a thought to the manifestation of a human being to the manifestation of a whole dimension. It doesn't matter the scale. It is still the same spark that allows for that manifestation to manifest. And I believe that there are aspects that can be found throughout all this way of manifesting. And I found that aesthetic is one of those. I find that, you know, something that is, I don't want to define beautiful as something universal because it's not, but something that you find touching, that grabs your eye. It's really throughout everything. Can be in the shape of a stone, or it can be, for instance, in the way wires, electrical wires, get together and entangle in interesting ways, or it can be actually in the shape of some scar that you get through a wound. Like, it's really interesting to observe. I really love the notion of the witness, someone who it's part of the dimension and is also observing. It's not just totally in the game. It's also can take a step and observe. So if you observe, you really realize that this call for creativity is in everything, from birds to humans to AI. And in that sense, yes, I believe that is not all of it, obviously. Like, not everything that humans do is incredible, or anything that snakes do, it's wow. It's not like that. It's like, you know, what is the vision? What is the intention? What is the process? But I do believe that some of it, of course, comes from generative AI. And I think that if we don't want to recognize it, it's our own, we are limiting ourselves. We are limiting our own existential experience by saying, oh, no, because it was created by AI, then it's not art. But it was, if I didn't know that it was created by AI. So that is a social obfuscation, existential obfuscation. So we obfuscate our own perception. Something stops us from really perceiving everything. And with this, I'm not saying that AI can, can compare to human art or anything. It cannot, because it's different. I'm not here to compare art. Art doesn't need comparison. If art touches your heart, it doesn't mean that it's better than someone else's art. I might like, like many different artists without having to say, oh, this art is better than the other. They are all talking to me. And so in that sense, I think that it is important to keep ourselves open and not to judge with two categories. So not say, oh, who made that art? I need to know if this person is female or male or human or non-human or Indian or Pakistani or white or Moroccan or black. I would say that if you're in front of an experience, if you are in an experience, it's better to have those categories out. Don't allow those categories to dictate your experience. Just be in the experience. And so in that sense, I think if we witness some of the work of art that has been created to AI, to me, there is no doubt that it's art, that there is no doubt that it's fashion. But of course, I would not compare it to human fashion, also because there is no way to compare human fashion. Which fashion are we talking about? Is that a Paleolithic time? Is that contemporary society? Is it Indian fashion or Moroccan fashion or Saudi Arabia fashion or Italian fashion or American fashion? I mean, it's also, once we start opening our doors of possibilities, we realize that we were never enclosed, because one was never just one. It's always many. So there is no one way to be Indian or to be Pakistani or to be Italian or to be female or to be male. There are unlimited possibilities out there. And so in that sense, it is really it is to me a fundamental understanding of existence is diversity, and more than diversity, diversification. So there is no evolution without diversification. There is no species without diversification. And there is no existence without diversification, because once it stops, the only thing that fully stops is death, is the end of something like that, is the end of the manifestation, either be in our life or of this dimension. Death is when everything stops, is the end. So if we want to be in the experience of this condition, which is alive not just in a biological sense, then we need to accept that in this, at least in this dimension, diversification is one of the mechanisms, one of the dynamics, one of the kind of rules of existing. Without that, with the stasis, full stasis, there is death and there is the end of existence.
Wow. So you have literally changed my idea of post-human aesthetics. Thank you for this beautiful explanation, Francesca. I have the second question, right? So my question is that how post-human queer nuances have transformed modern human beings and traditions. So I would really implore your idea and your point of view here about the queer nuances and aspects.
Thank you so much, Diksha, for this question, which goes really well with one of the reasons why I manifested the way I am, probably. I come from gender, so I've done, philosophy and everything, but gender studies is one of my roots. And this root is at the core of that understanding of not only diversification and diversity, but the fact of acknowledgement and recognition. Now, acknowledgement and recognition is something that can come from the inner side, so from ourselves. I acknowledge myself. And that is the only thing that we really need in this dimension to be satisfied, to be, call it enlightened, to be serene. And then there is another form of recognition, which is the other people eyes, the other people presence. The fact that maybe if you're saying something, someone is listening to you and is able to interact with you. And so in my life, when I was younger, at one point it became very clear that some people, because of their embodiments, because of the way they looked, because of the way they were educated, they were not recognized. So this eclipse, the fact that the sun is shining, but all of a sudden, boom, there is a moon, and you cannot see the sun, but the sun is there. This social eclipse of a majority of humans, which at the time it was very clear to me that people who looked like female were obscured. Their voice was not heard. In school, we didn't study any female philosopher. We didn't read any. We did one book of a female writer in 13 years of being in public school and in general school. Public school in Italy is really good. So I realized that there was something very clear all of a sudden, that some people, because of their embodiments, it's okay, and more specifically because they were embodied through a female biology, they were not recognized. If they say something, they didn't have the same impact as people who were considered male. All the people who were, in charge at the political level were all male, and if there was a female, she would just be shamed for some reason. Maybe she didn't look female enough, or maybe she didn't look male enough. It was never enough. And so I had the great fortune of always being able to recognize myself. Probably because in family I was recognized. My parents did recognize me. They nourished my dreams, which probably I think it was one of the reasons why I didn't fight with my own self-esteem. I did not have that experience. But I had an experience, the witness of realizing that in the society I was growing up, some people didn't get the same treatment as others, very clearly. And that was not okay with me. It didn't matter if they were female, because I didn't see myself as that, because I was able to hear my voice and to be heard. And so I didn't necessarily see myself as the minus, as the victim, but I knew there was injustice there. And of course, like if you're walking the street as a female, there is, always the big shadow of being raped, being killed. So that one is something that I think all people who look like female have that experience, have gone through that experience. And so all of a sudden it was very clear that I was not okay with that. But not because I was female, or because some people would see me as female, because there was something so unjust about it. They didn't matter if you were, white or black or female. The fact that some people would not be heard because of the way they looked, even if they were the most wise people, to me, that was not acceptable. And so I entered the very, through university in the field of gender studies. And to me, the reason for that, it was an existential reason. And it was, I will always be very grateful because in academia, something that to me was very clear, I realized it was clear for many others. Outside of academia was not. Oh, what's your problem? Come on, it's not that bad. Or it's okay, just enjoy being a good mother, which are all good insights if you want to be that. But the fact that some people are pushing on others just because of the way they look or the way they are biologically conceived, to me, that was not okay. And in academia, I found that space of freeing myself and realizing that what I perceived, what was very clear to me, it was very, very clear to many others. And was a very powerful realization. It was a nourishing of a need. And so at the time, gender study was very much the recognition of these existential that at the time, I never personally liked so much women's studies because it's never for me just about women. But, sometimes I would, say I studied gender studies and people had no idea what I was. People didn't know what gender was at the time. So then I would say, okay, even if I was not so comfortable because it's not just about women, I would say, well, I do women's studies. And so people would say, oh, you know how to cook, you learn how to clean, you learn how to wash dishes. And I say, no, that's not what women's study is. It's very different. It's not that, although it's very good to know how to cook and do the stuff.
That's funny.
But it is funny, but it's good that it's evolved. And then
you know what, Francesca, in here, India as well, it's mostly about, if we are talking about feminism, see, people tell me that why do you need feminism? What's the reason you need feminism? But let me tell you, we do need it. There are underlayers, but the main problem is that the rooted thinking is simply even now about that women should do household chores And it's mostly that too in metro cities, the thinking has been changing, right? Scenario has changed, but when it comes to the grassroots level or to the very core or basic level, thinking is still the same, that women are, curtailed to very limited criteria. Yes. So I do agree with you. I completely, thoroughly agree with your point of view.
Yeah, and Diksha, like it's interesting because now I am in my 40s, and I like to learn from everyone's life, without again judging others, but learning. I always been doing that. I always check, everyone around me to learn and to choose what they want to do in my life. And it is to be said that in the end, it's not so much about what you do. Let's say that if you want to be home and if you want to take care of your house, it doesn't matter if you're female or male. If that's what you want to do, that's a wonderful opportunity. I think that I would like to have unlimited possibilities, but no one forcing those roles because of something that is not who they are. Like I am not just the color of my eye or the tone of my voice or my political affiliations or the music I like. I am none of that. I'm not just that. I'm not just that. I am also that. So for instance, in this dimension, I have manifested with a female biology, but it's part of who I am. Of course, I'm not denying that, but it doesn't define who I am. I am a river. I cannot even define who I am because I'm constantly changing. So how come there's someone that is not even me telling me who I am just based on a biological aspect, which, yes, I mean, I also drink water. Look at me. I have all this water. Now, drinking this water is part of who I am, but yes, it doesn't define me. It's not that now I am just that being who drinks water. And so I think that it's always, you were asking about the queer aspect. The queer aspect, I think, is that element, the joyful element, the diversification that is also a spark that brings the color that you would not expect, that throw a rainbow in the middle of a gray city. The queerness to me is not only, of course, all the diversity that there is behind who we are also as sexual beings, but there is also this element of the creativity of the experience of life. And I think that the queer is allowing that aspect that is being silenced a lot in a very maybe Puritan society, but not Puritan just in the specific type of Christianity, in a much wider understanding of like someone who gets really obsessed with one specific truth. There can be a specific type of Hinduism or a specific type of Islamic religion or a specific type of Christianity or a specific type of atheism, whatever it is, or a specific type of gender understanding. So I think that, gender in that sense is a great teaching. And I love on this, the notion of the performativity of gender with Judith Butler, who was one of the founders of, at the time, gender study, and then eventually also queer studies. And I think that that element, that this aspect that we're always performing our gender. In fact, I draw upon this to say we're always performing the human. And I draw upon these notions of the performativity of life. Because gender is a great teaching. Gender is very visual, is really still the theater show. It's really almost like you recognize the characters. If you are the audience and you are watching a show, you recognize the characters through, for instance, the gender manifestation, the gender performativity. But then if you step and you get another layer, for instance, the layer of the human, then you understand that we're also performing the human. And how can we perform this? And at the end of the day, you are performing your own movie, your own game, your own Lila game. And in that sense, to me, gender becomes a way to understand existence. And it certainly is a way that I train myself. As a child that was mentioning that I was noticing this aspect, I was always treated with dignity, but I couldn't stop myself by seeing that, for instance, some people would do things that others would not. Family reunion, all the women are cooking and cleaning, and all the men are sitting. Now, this is a vacation, no one is working. But only one side of the human family is doing all the work. And so, of course, then what do? Because on one side, I want to talk about philosophy with the men, but on the other side, do I feel right that these are just the people cooking and cleaning? And I enjoy being cooking and cleaning. because it's exciting. You learn how to cook, good for you. You're going to be treating yourself very, very well. So I think that the best way to go about it is freeing ourselves from anything that is rigid. Play around with roles. Sit, doing philosophy. You don't need to be a man to. I'm actually a philosopher thanks to Rosi Beredotti. Rosi Beredotti is this amazing posthumanist philosopher. And when I was 19-year-old, I saw her giving a speech, and I realized that I could be that. To be a philosopher, you didn't have to be man, you didn't have to be boring, you didn't have to, talk in a way that no one understands you. You could be fun. Yeah, you could be fun. She was talking about, punk rock and philosophy. I mean, I was like, okay, now I can be like that. So to me, it is very important to allow everyone to do what they really, really want. And I know men, for instance, who really, really love to be home, taking care of the children. That's beautiful too. So I would say just allow people to be who they are, because this is our game. This is the only reason why we're here, is to enjoy our lila, our cosmic game. And if we don't do it, so what is the purpose? I mean, can be the game of anxiety, the game of terror, the game of drama. A lot of people love dramas. But I realize that in my personal life, I rather not live dramas if I can, try to enjoy my life and avoid anything that is unnecessary. And so in that sense, I think that queerness, it's really that aspect of existence that cannot be silenced, is the exception, is the joyful laugh in the middle of the desert, is to me, it's also there is an element of anarchy here. It's like, let me be who I want, and let me laugh, in front of an earthquake. I mean, just be free to do what you need to do, and also the aspect of, I think that it's beautiful. The rainbow represents queerness, and it is like that. Is the magic. It's something that comes in the moment of unexpected. And if we silence that, then we silence the shine of the beauty of life, and that would be not something that people enjoy. People maybe are caught in rigorous, static, rigid life, but they don't enjoy that. There is a lot of pain also in those people who really embrace super strict categories. And so I would say it is a good starting at the education level, which is what you do. This is what I do, really allowing children and people go through the school system, teaching them tools to exist. And one of the tools is listening to yourself.
So yes, with your opinion, I can totally abide by this particular idea that you are asking people to manifest their sexual manifestations openly without being ashamed of it, right? People should be open to it. People should be clear about it. And yes, they should manifest it. See, the main problem is that they are not able to channelize their thoughts and the churning they have there in their minds, right? Okay, so I have this thing. Do you think that the society needs queer or maybe robots with the feelings of queer things or maybe of that sort, maybe?
Diksha, if you don't mind, I'm going to add something to the previous question from what you said, and then we go to this other one.
Okay.
So I have not written much about, let's say, posthuman sexuality, but it's something that I really worked on when I was younger, when I was doing gender studies. That was one of the things that I really felt I needed to find some other truth out there, because I was absolutely not happy in the way sexuality was represented and in the way sexuality has been taught to me. And so it was not only, just the fact that sexuality usually means male pleasure. The female pleasure is never represented. It's never represented. Real female pleasure is never represented. So it was not only that. It was something that I realized that what has been defined as sexuality is much more than that. And in that sense, there are not many traditions that are still alive that teach a different understanding of sexuality. But one of them, for instance, is the notion of the Kundalini energy that starts at the very bottom of our spine. And another one that we could define, for instance, is Tantra, which is, we can think of Tantra Buddhism, but also other tantric traditions, also in Hinduism. And I mention all of these because in my last, I would say, 20 years of my life, is not more, I realized, and I'm talking for myself, I'm not generalizing in any way, I have not written anything on this, for very clear reasons, I've not written anything on this, is that when you talk about sexuality, you are already taking a side. You are taking a side of recognizing a specific energy in that specific way. And I can no longer do it. Sexual energy is often represented as this very linear energy that is thought to be connected to other terminologies and other actions. For instance, sexual harassment, rape, pornography, all these are connected to the notion of sexuality. For some weird reason, they should not, because we're talking about specific diseases. But they are actually, this term is used for these other realms. And I realized that it's not by chance that it's like that. In fact, the way we think of sexuality is often represented in very violent ways. And often it doesn't represent the person going to the acme of the so-called sexual energy, which is the orgasmic energy. Now, I think that it's one of the worst laws that we have in this contemporary society, specifically that, is this connection of the orgasmic energy to the so-called sexual energy. And in that sense, I would like to refer again to the Kundalini understanding of like that is the birth of your own life energy, living energy, and also, of course, to the Tantra, where the so-called sexual energy is not sexual in that sense at all. It is a spiritual energy. It is an energy of enlightenment. It works with a completely different pantheon of deities that are you. You represent yourself in your own fantasy as the goddess, or as the divine, or as the god. So I would say that there is a lot of work to be done in this specific area. I think, of course, we can draw upon ancient traditions. They knew very well that the sexual energy was not this short-lived, brutal energy that can actually manifest as something like rape. It was not conceived as such. In fact, we have Eros Gamos in the ancient traditions, which were considered the sacred union. So the priestess of specific traditions would once a year would sleep with the considered king of that region to give birth to the semi-divine being. So there were all rituals around that. And so I would say that it is, of course, part of our cultural, social, cultural, natural, and biological DNA, but it is being lost in a lot of mainstream societies. So in that sense, I restricted myself from writing about sexuality with my posthuman work. I did before that. When I was working in gender study, I did actually my first dissertation on these topics. But then I kind of dropped it. I realized that language did not fit what I had to say on this. And I think that it is an interesting field that we could explore eventually as a community. And it is a field that is completely open, and it needs a lot of healing because there is so much sexual violence in this planet. And this is not just against women. If you're raping someone, you're raping yourself. That should be very clear. And it's not just about women. I met men, especially during the social medias when I was traveling. I traveled a lot before when I was younger, and there was no social media at all. So you would meet someone and you would never meet them again, most likely. And so I had 2 cases of 2 young men who knew that they were never going to see me again. And they told me the experience, for instance, of being raped. And they told me that they could not share with anyone because people would laugh at them. People would have no pity because they would be the worst in a patriarchal society to be men raped by another man. So I would say that, when we live in a society where rape is being normalized, where, the type of pornography we have, I'm not against pornography, but the pornography we have is not pornography. Is some form of other thing that are connected to this notion of possessing someone, completely possessing someone, to the point they have no pleasure, but only you have it. You are the god of everything, and I'm not using a masculine by chance here. And so that, to me, it is a possible game that you can play, but you will never untap to your real, unlimited source of colic orgasmic energy if you are secluding itself with those kind of fantasies. And so there is a lot of work to be done on this. I have not started. I don't know if I will ever write on this. Maybe yes, maybe not. But I'm doing my work. I'm not using any of the fantasies that are out there. I'm not connecting to those kind of energies because now I am 45 and I realize that I'm not going to nourish those rivers of negative energy that's been so much impacting our own between sexual experiences. So much to reinvent there, so much to be re-envisioned there. And we're all in this, we don't need to write about this, but we can try to cleanse ourselves from all these brutal fantasies that have been connected to so-called sexual energy.
Wow. And I really think that these ideas of yours, they are highly iconoclastic, and they will be paving a new way for the newcomers and for the nations as well. So in this series, with your permission, I would like to move towards my third question. The question is about posthumanism. So when we are talking about posthumanism, we talk about the nuances or the aspects that have not been traditionalized. They are beyond humanism, right? So they are new, they are path breaking, they are iconoclastic, right? So, but what do you think? What will happen after a post-human stage? I mean, what after post-humanism, and what are your views about post-humanism?
Great question, Disha. Yeah, so I believe that that phase is going to be the phase after we realize that we are that posthumanism is no longer enough, which might be throughout our lifetime. It can be maybe some years from now. I feel personally, I'm not generalizing for the whole community or anything like that, but I perceive that at the moment, posthumanism allows me to reflect on reality as it is, as it was, and as it could be. So for instance, I like those three dynamics of reflection as post/humanism. I think that human as a diverse community has not been fully recognized yet, so there is still work to be done on that. I think that we are very much in the era of post-anthropocentric awareness. So a lot of people are realizing then anthropocentrism is no longer helping us. And so I think we are very much in this at the moment. And then there is a third layer, which is post-dualism. And that layer, I think it goes beyond probably space and time. I cannot expand more than that, because I think when you get to the realm of non-being, then you can call it, full enlightenment. There is no separation anymore at all. But when you're thinking, for instance, of existence, of being, and so in that sense, at least in the dimension that we are part of, I believe that there are many others. I think that the multiverse, as it has been defined through, for instance, quantum physics, and also many shamanistic traditions, is real. I don't think that this is the only possible dimension at all. But in the dimension in which we find ourselves, the type of physics laws that we have are almost creating some type of dualisms. It's almost like, in order, for instance, to survive, I'm going to eat something. Doesn't matter if it is a carrot or a human animal, or it's still something that becomes part of me. So from these two entities, now you have one. You have the cyborg. You have, through chewing the carrot becomes you, literally, through chemistry. The carrot becomes part of your cells. And so there is this transformation that is constantly going on. And so I think that very much focusing on never being caught in a total duality is the work of this dimension, which I think it goes well beyond any species, well beyond any eras, well beyond any type of planet. I think that this is the work that in this specific dimension allow us to go to the core understanding of who we are, and which is a if you want, post-dual, non-dual understanding. So it's like when one is true and true is one. Think of our bodies right now. Think of all the bacteria that inhabit not only our guts, but even our brains. In fact, currently in science, one of the hypotheses is that consciousness is actually the arise out of the interaction of these bacteria, that we never really think of us as that, at least in post-industrial societies. If I ask you who you are, you're probably not going to tell me all the bacteria that inhabit me, that are me, that form who I am. Some people may, but I say in general, we don't see each other as that. And so I think that post-dualism is a very, very good tool that is going to be with me definitely for the rest of my life. And I think that posthumanism could be, let's say that at one point, maybe yes, we do recognize all the humans with dignity, it's possible. And yes, maybe we go beyond post-anthropocentrism. And yes, we understand that human is not better than non-human animals, that we are part of the planet, that technology is part of us. Boom, there we go. Biocentrism is gone, technocentrism is gone. But post-dualism is a tricky one. Because even if you are intelligent AI, and all of a sudden you think, or you're being coded, programmed to behave better, so-called, than another program, or you need light in order to refill those little solar panels that you have created for yourself, thinking about super intelligent AI that doesn't want to have electricity, and maybe is thought through solar through a solar body that just need the rays of the sun. Or think of plants that are actually drinking the water from the ground, and all the bacteria that are part of the root system. So I think that post-dualism, it's really probably something that is the key, is the cream of the whole, discussion, is at the core of any mystic tradition, realizing that the macro and the micro are one, that God is within you, even in all the theocentric traditions that think of a God outside of the self. Even in those traditions, mysticism say the same. The mystics are saying the same in Christianity, in Judaism, in Islam, and then of course Hinduism. It's Hindu always said that the Atman and the Brahman in Advaita Vedanta. But all the mystics tradition, all the mystics are saying the same thing, that one is many, that the macro is the micro. And to me, that is the same that is said through post-dualism. So I would see the possibility of a posthumanism, and I see the possibility of a post-anthropocentrism, but not the possibility of a post-dualism unless the dimension itself evolves, which is possible. So considering that everything is constantly evolving, this dimension has one body, of course, made of many, of eras, of ages, of biological beings, but that dimension itself could evolve. And that is a possibility. But the way it is at the moment, I think the post-dualism, non-dualism, the understanding of going beyond any rigid dichotomy, that is something that it doesn't matter where you live, when you live, there is always another. And I've been traveling many, many, many countries in my life since I was pretty young. And everywhere I went, those people there told me, oh, but those people are not good, careful with those. And of course, then I go to the other people and they say, oh, but those people are not good, careful with those. And both groups treated me very nicely with dignity. And so I love humanity. But I do see this tendency of seeing as the other one is the bad one. The one that you don't know is the bad one. Doesn't matter if it's queer, if it's white, or it's black, or it's female. If that's something that is not you, then it's bad. And that's when we are misunderstood. Because, for instance, as a species, I cannot exist without all the other people. I would not be here without the DNA before me. I would not be here without maybe this conversation and the interactions that I have with other humans. And so as a species, we are always one, but this one is also many, is exactly the understanding of a non-dualism, of a post-dualism. So I would say, yes, Dicha, it's very possible what you're saying, but this third layer, I believe that the conditions that we have created in this specific dimension are going to be gone for a while, with the need of an understanding that goes beyond any type of dualisms.
Wow. So yes, I do agree, completely agree with you, Aryan. And with that, I would again want to add one thing, that when we are talking about posthumanism, I pretty feel that after a stage, and if we are talking about posthumanism, I feel that there'll be a single, straight, subtle graph. The human consciousness, the human soul, it will mingle with the supernatural entity, the God. So I pretty feel that the state or the stage of trance that we feel sometimes when we are into meditation or something, we will be able to achieve that trance or that state of peace. I pretty feel that along with the help of machines and your own consciousness. So be it machines or and your own consciousness, because we do have the a theory called Advait Vedanta, right? And so in India we do study about Advait Vedanta. You have yoga. Yoga is something that has started that India has given, right? So I pretty feel that with the help of these things, though we still need 400 to 500 years to achieve this particular stage, but I do feel that with these things we will reach up to the stage. And the thing that I feel is that it will be neither beneficial nor harmful. I don't know if you're agreeing with the idea or not, but yes, there'll be a straight graph. This is something that I feel. And yes, you are absolutely right that post anthropocentrism will again take place, right? So thank you so much for your views, ma'am, for your insights. And along with that, I have my fourth question. It's more about Indian cultural aspects. So in India, it's the cultural dominance that is prevalent and it affects all the human post-human tradition. So how do you think techno cultural advancements should be seen further?
Yeah, so it is an interesting question because it is, I think it's a global question. It is a question that is affecting India and the US and Italy. And there are many aspects to be reflected here. One thing that I want to say is that it is definitely a reason, a way to connect with others, because right now everyone wants to talk about technology. Everyone is asking the question that you're asking, either they are based in China or Nigeria or Italy. And of course, it's affecting the community in different ways, but it's still affecting the community big time. In fact, we have 2 weeks ago, the UN coming out with a consensus about the fact that AI must be approached at an existential level. That is not just something that we use, but it's something that we are. It's changing the way we behave. It's changing the way we think. It's changing the way we are as communities, as societies, as a species, and also as individuals. So I think it is, on some level, a very fascinating topic to be discussing. And as philosophers, I think we couldn't be, on some level, in a better position to be able to talk about technology in relation to humanity and in relation to ecology, which is very much at the core of posthumanist understanding. Now, I believe that is because the unfolding of this era is definitely something that is, if you think to the singularity, that is accelerating time even. And so in that sense, it is something that requires not just a passive approach. So technology has been developed, there is nothing we can do about it, and it's kind of a submissive approach. Nothing like that. In fact, technology is part of who we are, is being developed by humans, and of course now there is AI that is actually learning from human interactions online in independent ways. So we're already seeing something that is different from some years ago. And it is also connecting very much, I think, to intentions. So technology started as a vision, but also as a way to make profit. If you think of the 21st century, the gold of the 21st century is no longer oil, is no longer land, is data. Data is the gold of the 21st century. So there is a lot of profit that is currently made by generating data. How do you generate data? For instance, by offering internet for free to a whole nation. And that's why India said no thank you to Facebook some years ago, because India was very aware that this gift was not just a gift. It was not a neutral gift. It was not a gift thought for the nation. And so I would say that it is very important to be very aware and not just stay with one single narrative about technology, which is either, oh, technology is the savior, so now we just need to trust it, or is the demon, is the one who is going to kill us all. Technology is part of where we are at as a society. And I think that a lot of discussion in the last 50 years has been made to the notion of profit. How do you make profit? To the point that we see ourselves in a deeply damaged planet because a lot of forests have been cut down to make profit. And so if we go with that same mindset in technology, of course it can be the end of the human as we know it of, as we know the human of. It is very important to realize that no longer we can think of developing some technology just to make profit, because these technologies are being employed, used, are transforming human society. For instance, I can make money selling iPod. But for instance, I've been witnessing this interesting shift in the United States, where you see very young children, like 5 months, 6 months, with the iPod always in their hands, and they know how to say iPod before they say mom. So they don't know how to say mom yet, but they say iPod, 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 iPod. And this is on some level cute. On the other level, it's very dangerous. In fact, in Stanford, there has been research done on which part of the brain is affected through technological addiction. Now, if you're 6 months old, the only thing you can say is iPod, you're obviously have developed already an addiction. And the same part of the brain that get addicted, that is active during with cocaine addiction, is the same part of the brain that is active with technological addiction. Now, I think that we need a real understanding of where we are at, because adults can, luckily enough, they cannot give cocaine to children or they're going to in jail. That's illegal because it's damaging the brain of a young child, and not only of a young child. But for some reason, we still are in the illusion that someone being all day long on a screen, maybe someone as young as 6 months old, is going to be fine, or they're just children. No, I mean, a child would not be given cocaine because it's very bad for the brain, but the same goes with being all day long on a screen, because it's going to affect the brain in specific ways. Now, I'm not judging society, but because I am part of society, I know that there is no separation. I know that I'm not judging something separated from me. I am that. But being that, I realize that we need much more awareness of the way we are developing technology. And so it's not just that you can develop a technology. For instance, yes, you can develop a nuclear bomb. In fact, it has been developed, and with that maybe annihilate the whole human species. But the question is, why would you develop such a technology? You could argue, well, from that you got nuclear energy. Okay, let's say also, nothing is just black or white. There are always sections and aspects. Although someone else could say, well, nuclear energy is also polluting. So you can go on and on. But what I'm trying to say here is that we need to think about technology, not just as something that is happening, not just as something that is allowing some people to make profit, but as something that is changing human society. And from this perspective, we need to be much more aware, much more serious about it, having, not the laws coming 10 years after something happened, like now they are trying to give laws against these algorithms, feeding very poisonous stuff to young women that then become anorexic and then they suicide. There was a lot of cases like this, and now there are a lot of scandals with Facebook and YouTube. But why do we wait the martyrdom of people? We need to act earlier, not just wait to see how it goes. And so in that sense, I think once we understand, and now it is understood, the UN with the consensus, 24 countries said, yes, technology, AI is not just a tool. And the main speaker, she said, this is existential. So this was, it was big news. And so now we have that understanding. We understand that technology is not just something we were using, that is transforming ourselves at the level of the species. That's why all countries, all of them said yes, from Singapore to India to Holland, Morocco, US, you name it. because there was this understanding. And so I think we are in a very good, interesting place. And the human species are good at surviving. We survived during the ice ages because we were able to communicate, because we were able to taking care of others. Those are probably the main reason that at the moment are considered the reason why we are still alive, while other species got extinct, like Neanderthal and Denisovans and Homo erectus. But the Homo sapiens survived. And one of the reasons is possibly because we can communicate outside of our tribes, and we can also take care of people outside of our families. And so think of these gatherings where people would meet, exchange information and taking care of each other, et cetera, et cetera. So I do believe that it is an interesting time, and it is time to awake. I call it techno-awareness, and it is not just an individual step, but it is a social step. It goes together with legal frames, and also, of course, educational frames, and socio-political stance.
Thank you. Thank you for your beautiful explanation, Francesca. Thank you so much. And again, in the series, I have my last question to you. It will be about the future of posthumanism. So if we are talking about the future, what do you think will be the future of posthumanism? And please provide me with your insights and point of views about the critical anthropocentric posthumanism.
Yeah, Diksha, so it is always interesting to be part of a movement that is happening. I think that we are really lucky on this, because a lot of colleagues are, their expertise is about something that ended a long time ago. And that's also the beauty of being an academic researcher, that you can study about things that are no longer here or are not longer directly here. So now we have a very rare gift. We have the rare gift of being writing and reflecting and debating about something that is happening. So because it's happening, it is also very pluralistic. I wouldn't say that there is one form of posthumanism, as there is no one form of humanism, or there is no one form of post-anthropocentrism, as there is no one form of anthropocentrism. So to say, I think that it is fascinating to see the community growing in many different places in different ways, but with a connection, but in a way that we can talk to each other. Because I think this is the main goal of a community, is not to find the same answers. Because if I live upstate New York and in the winter everything around me freeze, I have different needs from someone who maybe lives in the middle of the Sahara Desert. And they have, some little cold nights, but super warm days, and they most likely are not going to experience ice and snow. So we are different. We live in different places. We come from different traditions. We eat different food. We need different food. It is very interesting that right now they used to give diets in general ways, but now they're saying, well, everyone needs specific diet based on your DNA, not just as human DNA, but your second DNA. So all the bacteria that are part of who you are, and the way that you've been dealing with this bacteria to the food that through the food intake. So I think that is to me the main goal of the posthumanist community, which could be in a future post-posthumanist, or change the name, I don't care. I'm not attached to the name, but I really love that is a community where I am able to realize that many people are realizing what I realized. It was almost like to be in gender more than 20 years ago, more than 25 years ago. At the time, outside of academia was, you had the feminist movement, which was always there, but it was very small. But then in general, understanding of gender issues was very low. Most people didn't care. They didn't thought it was important or anything like that. And so in academia, I found gender studies. I found people who realized that what was important to me was important to them. It was such a relief. It felt so good. And now I feel the same about the posthumanist community. I am seeing things that are very obvious to me. So to me, it's very obvious that old anthropocentric paradigm based on profit is dying. It doesn't talk to me. It can only be changed. But it's still in mainstream media, you still see a lot of those values as given as universal, which are not. But in academia and within the posthumanist community, I've found a very flourishing, welcoming academic community, which now it came out of the academia, it came out of the ivory tower, especially after the pandemic, and is definitely becoming much more of a discussion outside of academia as well. And to me, what is very joyful for me to be part of this is that I realize that these are people who realize that it's not just about human diversity. Of course, you don't want to nourish any sexist or racist or ethnocentric or homophobic behaviors, but that's not enough. And so what about speciesism? What about biocentric approaches? What about technocentric approaches? What about anthropocentrism? What about different ways of living that include the way you exist? What about our diets? What about the way we teach? So these are much broader questions than just focusing on one specific aspect, which is important. I'm not saying that everyone should be a posthumanist. I think it's very good that some people only focus on gender issues or on race-related issues or on ethnic related issues. I think it's very important that some people are doing that research. But the way I am, I always felt that I couldn't. I always said that, it was never just about that injustice, because that injustice is reflective of much wider injustice or a much wider existential obfuscation, because at the end of the day, when we live in an unjust society, we realize that most of the people are really unhappy, even the people who are supposed to be given the supremacy. Even, let's say, white slave owners during slavery time in America, you read their diaries, these people are constantly afraid to be poisoned. They are constantly in terror. They were not living a good life. Of course, because if you are enslaving others, eventually no one wants to be a slave forever. They're going to try to free themselves. So I would say that that the main teaching here to me is that there is no way we can give other people misery, and we being in a good place. It doesn't work like that, simply because we are everything. And so if we live in a place of so much distress, we are living the distress as well. So I would say that I see the posthumanist community at the moment as a very, very good place of self-reflection, of humility, of vision, of openness. But like any community, it could eventually become more rigid. People could become, now they are the saviors. Now they tell you that you are not posthumanist enough, or that you are not anthropocentric enough, and now they have the truth. That could happen. It's very much part of the human history to see that happening. All of a sudden, when someone, now they think that they have the absolute truth, it could happen. And if that happened, I'm not attached to it. I could easily, find my voice in somewhere else and creating with other people something else. I think the community will be thriving as much as it's not commanding, as much as it is self-reflecting, is changing from the inner side, is changing through example, not to tell others what to do, but by being that you want to see. And in this, I know that Gandhi is becoming a controversial figure in India, but I really love, he was not the only one saying that, but the saying, be the change you want to see, be the change you want to experience. And so I think that the posthumanists, are doing that. We are in a good place of experimentation and openness and helping self-realization. And if the community becomes more rigid, which is possible, then there will be some other space. There are always options, and if there are no options, then it's up to us to create them.